you can see a complete area of light. So the higher it is, the larger the area of light will be, because it's a bit like the sunlight in the atmosphere. You get a blue colour. These lights will hit the various bits of dust in there, and you see the lights right the way down from the top, down to the base. Therefore, a lower light would affect people less.
We're saying that this plan, this Lux plan, is showing that the level of light spill isn't harmful, and then it's therefore acceptable. Other solutions may be available, but this one is acceptable to officers.
Michelle?
I believe Councillor Ross had the idea of opening to only 9 p.m. on a basis for a year or two, and then checking with the neighbours and seeing how the noise is, and coming back to committee for a change of condition to go to 10 o'clock. If he's willing to propose that, I'm willing to second it.
Yes, Michelle. I personally have taken note of Councillor Ross's idea. I was just letting all the members have their say first before we sort of come back to some proposals. So, Councillor Pricer.
Thank you, Chair. Could you explain to me how tall is the sports hall?
It's in the report. I think it's 8.5 metres.
So these lights will actually project above the sports hall.
Yeah, so they're 7.5 metres high.
So although the sports hall acts as a baffle for noise, it doesn't help with the lighting.
Light will eventually spill downwards, and the hall plays some part in projecting in eliminating light spill.
John, it does to an extent. If you have a look at the plan behind, you can see the lux level, so you can see actually the building does act as a screen in terms of lux to an extent.
Okay.
All right, so we have no more questions. I'll come back to Councillor Ross. I think in all you want to do on condition 6 is change the times from 8 till 9 and 10 till 4, but I'll leave it to you to propose.
I thought you wanted to propose.
Okay, you were going to propose it, I was going to second it. It doesn't matter, one of us will propose it, the other will second it, okay?
Chairman, we haven't actually discussed the impact on Sunday afternoon. I was only talking about the weekday one until 10 o'clock, and that's all I would personally wish to propose, that is brought back to 9 o'clock.
I'll second that.
Okay. Are we all in favour of that condition being added? Yes. Okay. Right. Before we go to vote, are there any other questions? We're all clear then. Councillor Ross?
What we do with the acoustic report and whether and how that comes back, I'm suggesting it came back to the Chairman and Vice Chairman.
I'll say yes to that, but I'm not an acoustic expert myself, so if the officers recommend approval, I think I'm going to struggle. Wayne.
Can you just explain to me, I understand that you're going to have to take levels, but how are you going to do that in practice? Do you wait till the facility's been in use for a period of time and then do it?
Get a bunch of noisy.
No, exactly.
Wayne, it's pretty limited. So the HOs are saying that they're satisfied that there is a solution,
Right.
but the noise survey hasn't been carried out, so they want that noise survey to see what mitigation is required, if any, prior to the operation of the facility.
Yeah. No, I wasn't suggesting it wasn't a good idea to do it post installation. In some respects, that might be a good idea, because if you just go ahead and say, well, it passes, and then we get loads of complaints, it might be better to wait. Just a thought. You see my point though?
No, I do. The EHOs are saying they want the noise assessment undertaken and mitigation pre-commencement.
Councillor Ross?
All I was saying, Chairman, was that whatever happens, we're going to rely on the experts, in this case, the noise officers in environmental health, and all would be expected of yourself and the Vice Chairman, rather than bring it back to the whole committee, is to listen and act on that professional advice once the sound survey has been done.
Rochelle, and then we're going to go to the right.
I'm sure that the residents will tell Councillor Baker whether it's being too loud and when it's going to be too loud. You can request another noise evaluation at that point.
Okay. Right. So we've got the change of the condition 6 to only during the week 8 till 9, and we weren't going to change the Sundays. That was going to stay the same. And then on the noise, we're going to say that that is going to come back to the chair and vice chair to approve it. Oh, you're saying.
Yes, sorry, can I just ask one question? If we change this condition, would it be possible for the applicant to reject this and then come back with an appeal to change the condition?
And that they would have to come in, if we change this condition to 9 PM, they would have to come back with an application to vary that condition, so that there'd be a further application before they could appeal.
Okay, that's fine. That's all right.
Yes, Mary, please do. With the speaker. if you're ready.
Yes, sorry. The noise assessment coming back to you. This is not like a glamping condition where no development can be started until a satisfactory noise assessment comes in. The way it's worded is that just before it's used, a noise assessment should be carried out with a scheme submitted to and approved in writing. That there is a presumption that it's going to happen. It's just that they've got to be happy with the noise. So as long as you understand that. Yeah, it's... Okay, sorry.
Right, we are now ready to the vote then. The recommendation is set out on page 16 for approval. There are changes to the conditions on the members' update. Are we all clear what we're voting for? All those in favour, please show. And that is unanimous. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Committee.
Thank you. Second item then on the agenda is agenda item 89 on page 39, which is 1 Nelson's Lane, Hurst. It's an application to raise the roof to create a first floor and additional accommodation in the roof space. Insert 2 side dormer windows, single story rear extension, first floor side extension, removal of existing chimney stacks. And it's before the committee as it's been listed by Councillor Smith, and we did go on a site visit back in December, and following that the application was withdrawn. Once again we've got the case officer Simon Taylor. Away we go.
The application involves primarily involves a single story rear extension, a front extension and a first floor, a raising of the roof to accommodate a first floor with 2 side door windows on either side here. The original dwelling is an 8 metre dwelling, an 8 metre width dwelling, so there's extensions that have been approved in 1972 to either side of the dwelling. The red hatch line is the rear extension and the front extension and the first floor extension. One submission was received from the property to the rear. The members' update provided tonight, that submission has been withdrawn. The submission initially related to concerns about overlooking from the first floor windows to the rear, across the boundary. Despite its withdrawal, concerns are still raised in terms of the perception of overlooking from the first floor window, being this window here. The application was considered to be unacceptable primarily because of the scale of the development. Represents a 272% increase over the original dwelling, and an increase in the width of the building from 8 to 18 metres, so the harm to the countryside area and the overall increase in the scale of the building relative to the original dwelling and with the primary concerns with the application. Thank you.
That's very precise. Thank you very much. Right, we have only the one registered speaker, Amy Jenkins, applicant. Good evening.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to address the committee. I am Amy Jenkins, the applicant and owner of the application property. We have read your officer's report and have tried to take all your points on board. You mentioned that our application is detrimental to the street scene and harmful to the countryside location. Since we have lived at our property, there has been a temporary traveller's site diagonally across from us, which is now turned into a permanent traveller's site. 2 doors up from us is a large 4-bedroom detached house. Next to that was a piece of land that up until 4 to 5 years ago contained a log cabin. This has since then been demolished and a very large 3-storey detached house has now been built. I fail to see how what we are doing in adapting our house into a family home to raise our children is going to be detrimental to the street scene and harmful to the countryside location. We have high regard for your officers and the work that has been carried out in compiling the report before you. However, we cannot, with respect, agree with their appraisal on this occasion. We understand and appreciate that the proposed extension has to be considered on its merits and in accordance with the relevant local plan policies. These actually allow for extensions into dwellings in the countryside where there is an acceptable visible impact on the landscape. The policy does not set out specific numerical assessment as to what is not and what is acceptable. Indeed, there is not the right way to judge visual impact, and it is more important to look at the particular case from different viewpoints. As a matter of fact, the previous extensions were undertaken some 45 years ago, and it is reasonable to draw a line under these and consider the proposal afresh. Our advisor has undertaken this exercise, and members so to the committee will have seen the site and surrounds for themselves. In undertaking this appraisal, it has demonstrated that whilst the extensions were seen from Nelson's Lane and Islandstone Lane, they are considerably softened by the extent of the landscape within and outside of the site. This is important because our extended home would sit comfortably and would not harm the wider landscape character. What we would ask you to do in considering the proposal is not rely on the numbers and volumetric increase, which is actually not enshrined in policy CP11, but to consider the visual effect. This is to say what we would then extend dwelling look like and would it be so large to harm the character of the locality. When considered on this basis, we say that it would not result in harm. The design is one which we have worked very carefully, and we do not see that there is an objection to this concept. Indeed, whilst this is unique to the property, it fits in with its surrounds, and we always have been sensitive to the requirement as set out in the Borough Design Guide and the Design Guide for Hurst. The matter of privacy, which is resolved by amendments from 2017 proposal, and we have carefully negotiated with our neighbour, who is now content and fully supportive of the proposal, which is supported by a letter they have provided. The single window which would face the property is to a bathroom, and we have agreed that this would be frosted glass and non-openable save for a small fan light. We cannot in any way agree that this would result in loss of privacy. For these reasons, the proposal would not be harmful and represents a reasonable improvement to our home. I would urge you to please grant planning permission. 5.2, it follows the proposal is wholly acceptable on its merits and planning permission should be granted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ward Councillor, Councillor Smith.
Chairman, could I just ask one question and then listen to what the other members have to say and then come back? Page 48, number 23. In accordance with the Borough Design Guide, it refers to separation distance of 12 metres required, and this being 8.5. But in the members' update, it refers to 11. 11. What actually is it? Is it 11 or is it 12? Is it 11?
Sorry, 11 is the garden distance, and 12 is the side to back to flank relationship. So building rear of the building to side of the building.
So, could you put the plan up there, please? Yeah. So, Justin, could you just point out that's what you're referring to, are you?
Yeah.
You're taking it perpendicular to the line, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Ross?
My question, again I'll wait to hear other views about it, is am I right in saying that what is there now is 140% more than the original, and what is proposed would end up as 272% more than the original? I just want to be clear.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Michelle?
Since there seems to be no harm to the local area and no visible difference, there's no overlooking, there's nothing there. There's at least some other houses in the area that have done similar increases in size and mass. I can see no reason why it shouldn't be approved. It just doesn't make any sense other than the obsession with the countryside. And if the Hearst Council doesn't disapprove of it, then it has to be okay because they disapprove of it.
Michelle, sorry, just to pick up on a point you just made, if you looked at the back page, Hearst Council do object to the application. I know one of the councillors doesn't, the Parish Council.
They're objecting, okay, but I still think it's a good idea, based on what they're showing.
Councillor Sam?
Well, just an observation. I think that having previously done a site visit on this, it seems to me not to interfere with any of the neighbouring properties, although we shouldn't take it into account. Just one thought is that if this was viewed as a completely new development, taking into account what's in the neighbouring properties, how would we be viewing it rather than just an extension?
Without wishing to prejudge a scheme, when you're dwelling in the countryside in a location like this is very unlikely to be acceptable.
Any other members wishing to? Where are you going?
With regards to the mass, I mean, as we've heard, it's already 140%. The mass doesn't concern me. What's concerned me is the distance, the borough design. I mean, if we had in front of us a 500 house development in the borough, we wouldn't allow 8.5 separation. So in the countryside, I don't see why we should breach our borough design guides with regards to separation. I believe it sets a very, very dangerous precedent.
Are there any other member questions? Well, I've got a couple of questions. Are there any permitted development rights that they could do now? And could you comment on the extensions we've had were 45 years ago? Does that make a difference?
Permitted development rights allow a rear extension, it would be single storey, limited to a depth of 4 metres. That is about the extent of the works. They've already done extensions to each side of the dwelling, and then the roof, the volume of the roof would rule out any works to the existing roof form. The works in 1972 are figures. The original dwelling is 185 square metres, so it's the width of 8 metres. It is increased to 445 square metres in 1972, which is 140% from the original. So these work here would be, my estimate is 54% over the existing dwelling, and 272% over the original dwelling. The policy requires an assessment relative to the existing, the original dwelling, which is constructed in, or what was in evidence there in 1946 or constructed thereafter. So it's always in relation to the original dwelling, and this is 270% over.
I'm not quite clear on the PD rights, where you said. From where we are now, could anything be built without having to come to planning?
Provided there's no conditions prohibiting that, the application of permitted development. I'm just using my cursor here to say that if you were to do an 8 metre, this is 18 metres, if you've got the centre of it being 8 metres, you could do a rear extension to a depth of 4 metres to the original dwelling.
The original dwelling, or do you mean what we have now?
That original dwelling, so the 8 metre width dwelling.
Justin, I think I need clarification.
It would be the original dwelling as built. So if you extended out beyond the width of the original dwelling, you'd be overall extending more than half the width of the dwelling, which catches you on the PD. So you wouldn't be able to do it.
So you can't, thank
So you could do a small extension, not the full width that you can see, not the full width of the wall.
Okay, thank you. Right, did anybody else? Good.
Well, just in my mind back to when we visited the site, I didn't think there was a problem with overviewing. It was very well covered by vegetation. I mean, the whole site was well screened. And in fact, was it not the one where we moved into the next garden to have a look at it from the next garden side? And I certainly came to the conclusion that it was not a problem.
Mark, were you indicating?
Only to say the same thing as Councillor Holdsworth, but I didn't see it as a problem when we visited. Didn't look, there's a lot of overlooking. Top now, finished. I did put it on. I didn't see a problem, is what I was saying. So.
I take the point from the visit, but bear in mind that what's being proposed is taller than what is currently on site, and we'll have dormer windows in that taller roof slab.
Okay, Councillor Smith then.
I obviously know this area probably the best, and I am struggling to see where this would create harm, considering the locality, considering what is there now, and some of the points the applicant has made out that, you know, over the years this area has been built up. We've got a 3-storey house that was a log cabin, and we've obviously got the traveller's site directly opposite. I can't see how this would detrimentally affect the street scene and create harm to the rural location that it sits in.
Councillor Ross?
I see this as a classic case of heart versus harm versus policies. And at the end of the day, I believe we have to go with the policies, and therefore I would support the officer's recommendation.
Okay, any other members wishing to speak? And so from what Councillor Ross has said, we do have some clear policies, and I personally feel the same. Well, I am concerned about the separation distances. If you go allow one person to have it as 8.5 metres when we've been saying 11, then you're letting everybody will be asking for a similar amount. So I feel we should be staying firm on this. Councillor Smith.
That is a design guide. Sorry, it's not. That's why I said it's not. It says on states 11, but it's a design guide. It's only a guide for us to work with.
Yeah, but I agree with you, but that's what all the developers will argue when they bring the 500. I mean, we've been really strict about the size of our gardens with all the SDLs, and I'm frightened that if we allow this, I mean, it's not too much to ask for a design to come in. I mean, we're only talking about 3 metres here, aren't we? I mean, well, it's not even that. Yes, it's just over 3 metres, and I'm just very concerned about that. The bulk and the matting, I can't see the harm in that. I just see the harm in allowing the guidelines for separations to be breached, because every developer who's got a development bringing forward, they will say, well, you've allowed it in the past, why don't you allow it now?
Michelle?
As the inspectors have told us on a regular basis on appeals, the design guide is simply a guide, it is not a requirement. Even though I've asked David Lee in the past to put it as a requirement, it's not, and since it's a guide, it's only advisory, it's like a referendum that's advisory. It
Let's
doesn't
still
mean anything
stick to the
else.
application.
I just said it, I didn't say which one.
Can I tell you that we've actually refused applications because they haven't had 11-metre gardens?
I mean, I do understand what you're saying, John, but equally, could you just put the plot up again, please, Simon? We're not talking about this plot having less than an 11-metre garden. Look at the size of the plot. If it had 11 metres at the back and nothing to the side and nothing to the front, I would agree with you. But this is a very large plot. It's got a garden all the way around it.
Yeah, but you know as well as I do, it's not about plot, it's about the separation.
This is on the application,
Yes,
is it,
it's
Michelle?
on the application. It's again the idea that we seem to have approved other locations where the gardens were different dimensions, this way, or that way, or this way, or that way. It doesn't seem to be 11 absolutely, because I've seen several applications we approved that have been less than 11 meters of the garden.
Yeah, so it is an unfortunate relationship, because I hear what you're saying about not worrying about the 11, but if you look at it, it's because when they're proposing the door window would be orientated such that it would be looking directly into the rear of two, that the separation distance there becomes such an issue.
But, Justin, if you look at that, and you took a scour rule to it, if you take the area, the non-shaded area, and you took the point, the furthest point to the lower red line, and you measured that to the red line, if you took the square, that's probably less than the guide now.
Yeah, but, sorry, but if it is less than the guide now, there's no justification for putting a window in the elevation looking towards the lane.
Councillor Ross was next.
All I'd say is, irrespective of that, it is still 132% more than what's there now, and 252 more than the original.
Right, members, are we all done? Can we go to the vote? Right, they've got a clear recommendation then on page 40. There's 3 reasons for refusal. Do I need to read them, or we've all read the report thoroughly?
Sorry, Chairman. Could I make a counter proposal?
Yes.
That we approve it on the grounds that it's not detrimental to the street scene and it doesn't create harm to the countryside.
And I will second that.
Would you like to make a comment about it before we go to the vote on that?
And also presumably you mean that no harm to the neighbour, but clearly that's contrary to what the officer's report is telling you, that it is contrary to countryside policy. It is harmful to the street scene by using the temporary spark, and that it would harm the amenity of the neighbour.
But as I understand, the neighbour has now written in, basically, because the application when we visited the site had 3 dormer windows facing over. This is now 1, the other 2 have been moved around the side, so it's now a frosted window that represents the bathroom. Is that right?
Were you indicating then, Councillor Ross?
I was just going to say, were this proposal by Councillor Smith be approved, how would we deal with the conditions? That
Just going to ask Justin that very question.
I would be happy to. I'd be happy to suggest some conditions for members if they were that way inclined.
Okay. We would do that after the vote, would we?
That's a bit conditions before the vote.
Some medical proposals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so unless they delegated to you, do we have to get
We can suggest some conditions that the standard time limit, approved plans, materials as per existing, In this circumstance, we'd also recommend a condition about the window, that it was obscure glazed and opening at a high level only. And given the circumstances of the site, we would suggest that permitted development rights for further extensions was removed, so that any application, any further extensions require an application.
Right, so we've had a proposal from Councillor Smith, and it's been seconded by Rochelle, and that is to approve the application. Now members, be sure you have read the report with the recommendations from the officer. They are very clear what they're suggesting. This is going against our policy. So we've had it proposed, we've had it seconded, so we need to go to the vote. So all those in favour of approving this application, please show. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those against? We have 3. So the application's approved then. Oh, sorry, I do appreciate you're a member of the staff, but I was just waiting for the public to leave, that's okay. Right, members, you may be thinking this is the last planning committee, but it isn't. It's possibly the last one for Angus and Bill, but for the rest of us, it most certainly isn't. We do have one in May. And so provided you guys are elected back in, you are on the committee for May. It is after that point that the committee will be reconstituted with people wanting to come off or come on. Right, so all of you do need to pay attention for the next bits. So I can do the preemptive site visits because there are none this coming month. I'll now just hand over to Justin to take us through the other bits.
Thanks, Tim. We've just got the summary of appeal decision.